September. Please stand for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second. Signing of the motions.
We have three motions today. Motion 18-346 to approve the consent agenda. $18-347 to approve payment to Deerfield Funeral Home
All this stuff up.
for an indigent cremation for a Crawford County citizen.
Bobby, you might just minimize that. We might use it again here. Location.
18-348 to recess and go into closed executive session.
Go ahead, Paul.
And that's all.
You got another one you use on it? Nope. Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, before we go any further, I'd like to have my road foreman and Randy Shatana come forward before we continue this meeting,
What, pertaining to what?
pertaining to a bill that myself and my road foreman is going to pay. Randy is going to present a bill to us for the road that got chipped and sealed, non-county road that I've been told wasn't. Him and I is going to pay the bill. So go ahead, divide that in half if you would. You already got it divided in half?
No, I don't have to buy
Okay.
it, it's just one total bill.
Okay, what's total
There
bill?
was approximately 500 foot of road there that we did, and we used 475 gallon of the CRS TR, it's our tire rubber oil, we use chip and seal with. And then I used approximately 15 ton chips at $10 a ton. The chip and seal oil is $1.78 a gallon, so altogether the bill comes to $995.50.
$995.50, okay.
Here's a copy of that, Bob, here's a couple copies.
Bobby, make 3 copies of that, would you please?
Yep.
Randy, stick around because I want you to deliver the checks to the treasurer's office and have Joe Grizzolana take them and hold them till after this investigation is over with, please.
Okay.
I just want to say a few words.
Hold on for a little bit, Benji, please. Let's write our check first.
Okay.
I'll get the math here and get to you. Make your check for $497.75. Benji, make it out to Crawford County, Jim.
Crawford County Treasurer.
Thank you. What did I tell you, Benji? 900, how much? 997, 75? Okay, got you. Pictures?
Yep.
Randy, put these in an envelope, get a copy of that bill. You give to Joe Grizzolana to hold the checks until this investigation's over with, please. Thank you. Thank you, Benji. Now you can continue.
All I got to say is, I started here in 1987. We've been maintaining that road. Neither 03 or 04 county asphalted that road. And I put chip and seal on that road. Rick McGorry worked here in the 70s and county maintained that road.
And then go ahead and state your name and
Dan Cannon,
your road foreman.
road foreman, 3rd District. So, I'm leaving it at that.
Well, no, you stick around. Yesterday, I get a call that I'm being investigated by the KBI for misuse of county money. I feel that my name, Benji's name wasn't mentioned, and I think that's slander. And so I want you to know that I'm calling the KBI back in, and we're going to get in closets and drawers at this county. Whoever the person was, or persons, I think there was 2 people involved with this, that brought this up. I already got a lawyer on retainer, and I will pursue it till I go in. So if you people feel that, and also there's still a couple people that's connected with the county that said 14 years ago, if I'm saying this right, Benji, please correct me if I'm wrong, that said this was a county road. And if we have to, we're going to take it to trial.
My old road foreman.
That's all I'm going to say
Maintained
about
this
it.
road this whole time. From the early 70s, Rick, the county maintained this road. I don't know how any way else you're gonna get back into the golf course. We always just mowed and graded up to that certain point. Then finally, they put asphalt down so we didn't have to mess with the potholes coming in there. And the road's cracked up. I chipped and sealed it because Randy figured out we'd probably have around 500 gallons of oil left. When we finished up, we were able to run by there, empty the machine out while we're moving north. So, sorry about it.
So we're going to have to decide how these people's going to get in there, if it's a private road, a county road, but 14 years ago when it was a county road.
What do we do now? Kim Nate asked me, are we going to maintain the road anymore?
Well, we're going to, looks like, Benji, we're going to have to decide because the way I understand, I haven't been in there yet. What is there, 2 or 3 homes or 2 or 3 families that live back in there? I do not know. And there's another one that bought a farm that has to have access. Are we going to landlock it or what are we going to do? So the people that that stirred this up, I hope some of them's got answers because.
And Kim Nate is mom and pop.
Sure.
They don't have no city, municipality money funding to them. They can't afford it. They pay $8,000 a year in property taxes.
I understand, Benji. So thank you for paying your part, and I hope neither one of them catch on fire. Thanks, Benji. That's all I have. Continue.
Mr. Mac Young, Community Corrections Administrative Director, presenting Community Corrections Fiscal Year 2018 year-end outcome.
Good morning.
Morning.
So what I've given the commission is the fiscal year 2018 yearly outcomes report. And basically what this is a snapshot of how the community corrections program did in fiscal year 2018. I can tell you that our programming hasn't changed any. It hasn't changed for several years now. Our core programming is still based on the cognitive behavioral model, which that's a 24-week program that some of the offenders go through if they qualify. 2, we put a big emphasis on employment or unemployment. And if you'll look on, I don't know what page that's on. Unemployment remains for the offender population at about 30%. It's on that very last page. Our goal was to lower that by 1%, which that target would have been 29.5%, but we're still at 30.5% unemployment rate among the offender population. If you look on page 4, from year to year, it's our objective to have a 75% success rate. That obviously fluctuates every year. That is by statute. In fiscal year 2018, we were at roughly 69%. I'm not seeing it. .8% year end, and then actually it's on page 3, and even that fluctuates from quarter to quarter. As you can see, we were at 79.5% success rate in the first quarter, and then we ended the year at 69.8%. And there on page 3, it gives you a breakdown of successful, unsuccessful, and how that breaks down.
Matt, when you say successful, you mean they're no longer in the system, or they went and got a job?
Not
or-
necessarily. The Department of Corrections standards of successful is that if an offender doesn't go to prison, then that's a successful completion. And it breaks it down by county at the bottom of page 3. Crawford County was actually roughly 59% success rate for the year.
Is that up, Matt? Is that up?
From 2017?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know what that
Sounds
number.
like it is.
I don't know what that number is. But as you can see, Crawford County had 27 revocations. 15 of those were condition violators. So, that could mean a lot of different things, from positive drug tests to not showing up to not complying with drug and alcohol counseling, things like that. And once you get into a revocation, it's kind of out of the hands of the supervising officer. It's up to the judge and the prosecutor at that point. We can only give recommendations.
So, Mac, what you're asking us to do today is, are you to approve this?
Right.
If there's no further questions, I'll move to approve the 2018 year-end outcome for community corrections.
A second.
All right.
Signature page for the chair.
Have anything else, Mac?
Nope, that's all on that.
Mr. Jason Van Beesler, Emergency Management Director, discussing JAG grant.
Morning.
Morning.
Jason Van Beesler, Emergency Manager for Crawford County. I was asked yesterday by the sheriff to come propose to you. They're wanting to look into getting the JAG grant, which is Justice Assistance Grant. We applied for it last year to get the tower out at Greenbush. We did not. We were denied last year. They had some problems with the grant, getting the grants out last year. So I've been on the phone with Bonnie since yesterday, Bonnie Houck out at Greenbush, getting some information on this. Basically, it's a equipment grant, so it'll supply the tower and all the equipment to go in it. We would just have to, there'll be a county match with that, and I got proposals here if you guys want it. Basically, we're just looking to get an okay to go forward and letting Bonnie go ahead and apply for the grant. It's due October 1st, and
When's it due?
October 1st.
When did you receive it?
When did I receive it? The information? Yesterday.
You know when October the 1st is?
Yeah, I know. So,
You seen this, Jim?
We looked it over yesterday.
we looked it over yesterday.
Yesterday afternoon.
This would be a radio tower?
Be a radio tower, be located out at Greenbush. It'll serve our communications as long as, and some of their communications
I
as
think that
well.
would be really good. I've heard the firefighters talk about a certain point on the western side that they.
From my point, the more antennas we have, the closer them guys are with their portables to the antennas, the better off we're going to be, the better off our communications is going to be. We've been moving forward. We do have an antenna up by north of Walnut now, which should help quite a bit. We put another fire antenna down by McCune, in between McCune and Cherokee. I've been upgrading repeaters for the last 6 months.
Yeah, I
One or
appreciate
two
all the
here at a
work you've
time,
done.
so, a lot of the, and with this, with our match, we can get a lease agreement with the 911 monies to pay back most of that.
So what's, if you do a radio tower, you're speaking about 150, 175,000? It just depends on the height?
Right, this is a 150 footer, and the proposal was quite a bit more than that.
How much was it?
269. But
How tall is it?
there's some 150 foot tower.
So what's it, a 50/50 grant?
No, we would, our part would be the match, and we would, the way they got it written up here is it would look like we would split it with Greenbush, and that was the 269 we would split with Greenbush. But if you look at it in the long run, if we, see, the county can lease the tower to the 911, so we would get that money back through leasing the tower yearly through 911 funds. And I've double checked,
What county funds would be used?
we would have to come up with the match to begin with,
Match to what?
to the 269.
69?
Correction, 267, 950 is what it actually is. Whatever.
That's the total cost of the tower.
Right. Plus, the equipment was 88, 133
On top of that?
on top of that.
Wow.
So it's
So you're
quite a bit more.
speaking 350?
Yep.
And our part would be 175?
No, the equipment, the grant would cover the equipment part.
Well, the grant,
The 88, 133.
so the tower we'd have to pay.
Right, we'd have to come up with the money, from
So
what I
about
understand.
$130,000.
Right, up front, and then we can lease that to the 911 funds and pay for it out of that.
So in other words, the county would have to come up hard money, $131,000.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And we
Would
can't
they
use
be
911 money
repaid?
for it.
not right off the bat. You can turn around and lease that to the 911. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They can only pay a lease.
We can only pay a lease, we cannot buy equipment with
See,
911.
the towers that we've got rented right now, they're about 5,000 to 6,000 apiece.
Some are 5 to 6, there's a couple that are 8. That's per year,
Yeah.
8,000 a year that we spend.
I was gonna say,
So you're speaking.
So you're like 800 bucks.
You're speaking 20 years pay for a tower by
Somewhere
leasing
around-
it back.
Right,
If the 911 money is still
Stays,
available in 20
right.
years.
right. So basically, we're asking approval to go ahead and have Bonnie go ahead with the grant. We'll know by November 1st if we have the grant, is what she told me.
Does applying for this commit the county to anything? Or
Do what now?
does applying for the grant commit the county to those funds or not?
That I'm not sure. Jim, do you know?
Normally,
Past
no.
grants?
Normally, no, but if you're applying, you should be ready to go.
Right.
We've had that deal where we've turned down grant money after we've been awarded. That's
The sheriff would have been here doing this, but he was out of town. He called me yesterday and asked me to,
grant projects.
and we worked on this last year. I helped him last year on it, try to,
That's a pretty big commitment to
Right.
think about it in a few minutes. And
Do we have
sign
Friday?
something.
Do we do? Can they look at it to Friday?
yeah, that's fine. I'm okay with it. I mean, that's,
I'd like to read it, but, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but,
Right.
long time to pay back something, but.
Yeah.
I agree,
but
I'd
it-
like to see it as well.
But it's not, it's no biggie.
okay. I'll get to you.
We can handle it. Hey, on painting, do you have to pay it all one time, or how long we talking about out on, a year?
You're looking into next year, April next year. There's a timeline in there.
It's timeline, it's got to be installed?
Yeah.
And do we have a site for this? Is it going to be out to Greenbush?
We had a green bush, there's 2 different sites, next Sways over
Right,
in there
okay.
as well.
Okay.
Jim, I had one for you, but I don't know what to do with it.
All right. Let's get with it.
Oh, actually, this is.
Hey, Jason, was this grant, the amount, was it this high last year?
I don't think it was that high last year, but I
don't think
know
so.
I have seen the price in metal go up,
All right.
so that could be some of the cost of it. I know there was a big increase in the environmental study. It went from like 10,000 to 35,000 on the Hayden Tire bid, so I don't know
Can I ask
what
you,
cost
would
so
it be
much.
cheaper for us to ourselves build a tower, maybe not as tall?
There's probably some of that stuff in there that we can do. Build a road, stuff like that, we can
That
probably
we
cut
can
out
knock
of there.
out of there, knock
Yeah.
our portion of it down?
Yeah.
So you build the pad and...
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Just make it now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jason.
Okay.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks.
Mr. Frank Young, Ag Engineering, regarding study of Silverback Landing Development Project site.
Morning. Morning. Here. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah.
I think that'd be
Yeah, well, they're probably making their 7 or 8 copies.
All right. Greg, I'm going to pull the map up here because I think that's going to help me think about the project. Anyway. Probably other people too. Just leave it like that. Go ahead, Frank.
Start. As Jeff said, I'm Frank Young. I work for Agricultural Engineering Associates up at Uniontown, Kansas. And we made a proposal to you guys 2 or 3 weeks ago to do some work for the county to look into this Silverback Landing development project. I kind of started my report off to you with a little bit of background on what rural housing incentive districts actually are. You may already know all this stuff, but it done me some good to do it, so I put it down on here. The RHID is a program designed to aid developers to build housing within communities by assisting with the financing of some of the public improvements involved in a housing subdivision. RHID captures 100% of the incremental increase in property taxes created by housing development for up to 15 years. In order to take advantage of the incentive, property must be within a redevelopment district. And districts are defined by the city or county involved and must be based on a housing needs analysis. RHID is authorized for any city in Kansas with a population less than 40,000 and a county with a population of less than 60,000, or for any county with a population of less than 40,000. Permitted use of this money includes payment for relocation assistance, site preparation, sanitary and storm sewers with lift stations as needed, drainage conduits, channels and levees, street grading, paving, curbs and gutters, street lighting, underground public and limited private utilities, sidewalks, water mains, and extensions. It may not be used for buildings or structures to be owned or leased to any developer. So it's not to be used for the house itself, just for the infrastructure to serve the house. Once the city passes a resolution forming an RHID district, other taxing entities involved in the district have 30 days to file a resolution of adverse impact on said taxing districts. If the Board of County Commissioners of Crawford County determines by resolution that the district will have an adverse effect on such county, the resolution becomes null and void. The City of Pittsburgh's website shows 12 RHD areas, of which the Silverback Landing is listed as B1, and that's on the back 2 pages of your report. I've included the general map showing the 12 RHID districts, and then next to the last page shows the Silverback Landing district. It's listed as B1. The AEA proposal to the Crawford County Commissioners outlines several items to be investigated in regard to information submitted by the developers to the City of Pittsburgh. A report was to be prepared on these items prior to the Crawford County Commission meeting to discuss any adverse impacts the RHID taxing districts could have on the county as far as related to site planning. As per the proposal, the following items are investigated, and I'll give my report on those after I read the item. Item 1 was review the preliminary plat of the subdivision for natural outlets that may be used or modified to channel runoff away from the property, paying particular attention to areas that do not use reserve areas to dampen the effects on neighboring property. A review of the 2 preliminary design plats forwarded by Earls Engineering showed drainage areas that were to be left uncontrolled that would discharge directly into adjacent property. That's what the map was that the gentleman took down.
Will this help, these clamps? Got 2 and there's enough for you?
Earls Engineering and Inspection are the consultants for the developer. They were very cooperative with me when I asked for information. The only Problem they had was it's still in the early stages of the project, and they don't have a lot of final stuff to present. So we kind of waded through their perception of what the problems were and how they were going to deal with them, and I'll try to explain that to you using these drawings they sent me. The only uncontrolled drainage that was shown on the property under this plan is relatively small areas around the perimeter of the property to the south and the west. There's roughly 44 lots going around the edge of this property that are not feasible to reverse the grade on and drain into the streets. And they took about this line right here represents the drainage area. And so the back half of those lots is still going to discharge onto the Fifth State property to the south. The rest of the entire property will discharge into the streets, except for a small portion along the very north side, very small. And again, around the outside, that it's not feasible to reverse grade on. All this up in this area will drain to the streets, taking advantage of the natural frame, the natural gradient. We discharge through a stormwater system into a detention pond in the southeast corner of the district, which is this red outline.
Frank, where's that detention pond? Is that on the county or the city side?
It's in the Silverback.
That's down in that corner in the loop?
It was called a reserve area. It would be probably right in this area right here.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So, the other, so in other words, I presume that's a channel that you're talking about coming through, or is that a street?
Oh, that's right.
These are
I'll
all,
get one that does.
these are streets. These are the internal street lane systems serving these lots. They have curb and gutters, they have standing back curb and gutters, not drive-through, that will channel water into the storm sewer system. There's some little squares that you can see here that are surface inlets to underground pipes that will funnel water down into this.
Frank, this is where the retention pond's gonna go, right? See it on that map?
Right there, yes, that's what it said.
It's over to,
Right there.
yeah, it's close to their property line.
Kyle, do you remember, is that in the floodplain now?
Yes.
So, Frank, how would that work? Have a retention pond right there in the floodplain? I mean, how effective would that be?
Well, let's continue.
Okay,
Let's-
that's fine.
Let's
That's fine.
continue with the rest of their plan, and we'll discuss that.
Now, is this the plan that they want, or is this what you recommend that should be done?
This is all of theirs.
All there, so you're going to have your own recommendation at a later date or something for us?
Well, I'm not going to design it for them.
True, I agree with you.
I will review their design, and if you guys still have time, we can report on it then. But my understanding was you were kind of under a time crunch.
No, we got 30 days if it gets approved tonight through the city commission. We got 30 days to say, tell them if I'm right or wrong. I mean,
Okay.
if we have concerns, we file a complaint. But if we have to say, well, it's going to take 90 days to study, or from you, is this right? As long as we file it, we don't have to be done in 30 days. Yes or no?
Right, we have to file it, and then the
File it,
project's over until they change it to how we want to see it.
Okay.
So it could continue on for months. I mean, if that's
Well,
okay with you.
that will give us time
Yes, sir.
to go over their final plans
Yes.
instead of their preliminaries.
Yes.
So
Okay.
this report's going to deal with their preliminary, and they'll have more information later.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. Anyway, the part that's under item 1 that's not going to go into that retention basin are the back half of the perimeter lots. Just roughly calculated, there's 5 or 6 acres along this side that's going to randomly discharge into the areas where they're currently discharging, or if they redo some of the drainage, they could be routed into a drainage easement, which they show, several drainage easements coming off of this. I think there's one on this side too. These are subject to modification that's in a preliminary location. These are like 12,000 square foot lots are the biggest, so if the back half of them drains off, that's roughly 6,000 square feet. Some of the lots are even smaller than that, but if all 44 lots were the large size, you'd have, roughly an eighth of an acre, something like that. So 8 times 44, eighth of an acre into 44 is roughly 5 to 6 acres of uncontrolled drainage, broken up into several areas by the natural topography.
Those would be backyards?
Yeah, they're backyards. I haven't looked at any of their design plans, but other subdivisions I'm more familiar with, they might have a walkout basement or something. They're going to elevate the building site so it slopes back to the street, and then they'll build their house, and the backyard will probably be left close to natural, and you might have a
Are you
walkout.
assuming, or do we know that they'll run the roof gutters to the street?
They say the roofs are going to the streets.
We know that.
Roof and all the driveways and whatever they modify with their earth fill.
So if it's just backyard area, that's not really any change from what the situation is now.
No, not, the runoff coefficient would be similar to what's there now. One other use for this retention basin is a borrow area for those building sites. They anticipate taking dirt out of there and making it, mostly below ground. But again, that's still preliminary. Along that south and west perimeter, my field inspection, we came up with about 3 different areas where the field had been discharging anyway from historic uses. I found 2 gullies and one kind of a washout, which really hadn't become a gully. The first gully was in this area right around here. It was about 1.5 feet deep, about 4 foot wide at the top, and it was just field runoff that was headed out through the timber. Another washout area was found along this perimeter. It was more or less just a foot or so deep and about 10 or 12 foot wide. It really hadn't moved a lot of dirt. And the largest gully, as I would call it, was over here at the southwest corner of the field.
Here?
It'd be down right in that area. It's either that corner or the one up above it there. Could have been in that area. And it had a lot of stuff piled in it. Like it had been stabilized by the farmer. The stuff was like, I believe there was an old bathtub and things like that, but it was out in the timber. It wasn't on the silver back side of the fence. So there was evidently a fairly amount of water going that way off that field.
Hey Frank, there are some places by the railroad tracks, probably right in that area, all that drainage comes from across Rouse Street by the tech center and all that, because everything flows to the south and to the east. Was there any kind of calculation saying that the water that runs through there, that, we were talking about that 5 acres by building the houses, that'd be the runoff. There would be additional water that would come through there, correct? Was that in calculation or anything?
No, there wouldn't be any new water coming.
No, I know from that, but would that cause erosion and stuff like that? Because that water there will not hit that retention or detention pond or base.
Well, It's going to be less than it's going through there now because they're going to regrade the lots and cut off the overhead drainage that's now using those 3 gullies. So they're going to see quite a bit less water than they are now because of this network of streets. Right now, pretty much, there's a little ridge through the middle. Most of it goes this way out of the entire field. Well, that's going to be changed, and all the drainage is going to come back to the streets and wind up down in here. So these little strips of land is all that's not going to be changed. And they're quite a bit less than what's going through there now. So the net effects on the Pitt State property here to the south is probably going to be a lot less than they're seeing now. A direct runoff, if this plan's finished up by the engineer. Any other questions about that part of it?
What about, Frank, that new box culvert for the road? Do you have any concerns about that as far as the effects on the draw and flooding flow through that draw?
Moving down here on the Silverback off this project. I didn't go down there too far because their engineer said that, and we'll get to this a little later, the outlet for this detention basin is going to gravity drain down to this culvert, be discharged into that ravine below the culvert. That's really all I discovered about the Silverback Way project. They did give me the final plans on the Silverback Way street project.
Well, where's this road going to come in at? It's going to be off of Centennial. Do you know,
I've got it.
Frank?
I've got it.
I think I have a packet of information. Make sure it's in that.
You know, if they put a road in there, Frank, just talking, is this going to dam up to the west of the road?
You can see that very good. This road starts in Springdale and East Centennial, where that is.
Yeah, I presume, I mean, I think imaginary, I think there's a, I don't think it's been named yet or anything, Frank. I think there was just a cut off in there, the road that goes back.
Springdale is the entrance to
The Baja?
the
Oh, okay, gotcha, okay. Is that what it is? Okay, thank you.
It's right in there.
Uh-huh.
And it heads to the north. Yeah, there's Springdale.
Springdale.
It shows this intersection, right, being the beginning of
Right across from that then?
your Silverback Way. It's a divided street, it's got a median down the middle, I understand it. It terminates pretty much up there where that it terminates a little bit away from the reserve area at the south line of the subdivision. This is the big street going south. And he's showing the drainage areas and the localized stormwater that comes in. And this map does not show the main drainage coming from the northwest along your railroad, or doesn't show any large streams coming through what their drainage would be.
So you don't think that would interfere with that road as far as acting as a dam?
I'd have to see how they're going to do it, but I believe that the discharge from this detention basin will be downstream of the road.
Downstream, be east of the road then?
It would make sense that it should be. Either they're going to cross the road again to outlet it, which I wouldn't see why they would want to do that. But again, I'm speculating
Right.
since I don't have final plans. Second item on our proposal was to review future site construction planning for potential problems from street and storm sewer discharges leaving the property. This may require the county to ask for site planning documents such as street layouts, storm sewer locations, curb and gutter discharge points, et cetera, that may not be completed by the planner at this time. And none of that was included in the original email information that Mr. Emerson sent over. So I asked for it from the engineer. And that's how we got the two planning documents. The second map looks just like this first one, except it's got the actual drainage areas inside the subdivision spelled out on it. There aren't any sizes on the storm sewers, no details on the storm sewer inlets. So basically, I interviewed the designer and came up with the following information. Their intent is to have the final plans in the next 5 to 6 weeks. The preliminary plans show a stormwater detention basin, which he has modified to contain a 25-year runoff event from the entire property, excepting the area I mentioned going around the perimeter, the back half of those 44 lots. The engineer calculated runoff coefficients using a value of 1 for all paved area and rooftop surfaces. This is on the conservative side because design guidance allows you to use, like maybe a 0.95 down to a 0.85, depending on what kind of pavement and what kind of roof it has. He didn't try to get any credit for that. He used a value of 1, which means 100% runoff. Everything that falls on it's going to run off. He then again used values of 0.2 for lawn areas, which assumes good infiltration for heavy clay soils. They do allow you to use lower values if there's any type of permeability to the soil, but there isn't. They're all heavy type D soils, or the best on the site. There was some type C on there, but it was maybe a third of the site. Most of it's pretty heavy clay soils. And when he added all those up, he came up with a runoff coefficient of 0.467, which is slightly less than the 0.5 required by the city of Pittsburgh in their design documents. And I have that evaluation. It's several pages long. If the board would like to review that later, but I guess my bottom line is it does meet the city's requirements for their stormwater resolution. The third item I was to review was the stormwater pollution protection plan as submitted to KDHE. That's kind of the working document that this subdivision is going to have to live with all through construction of the houses and streets. It details sediment control activities, and you have to submit one of those if you're disturbing more than 1 acre of land. Another thing you have to do if you're disturbing more than 10 acres of land is to provide a sediment retention basin for the sediment that's going to move off the site. The engineer has not completed his stormwater pollution protection plan, probably because he hasn't completed this either, and that'll be done in the next 4 to 5 weeks, according to the designer. In his design for the stormwater detention basin, he has also included the sediment control basins inside of that red outlined area. There's a little line going through the middle of that area. He's going to put a dike through there that would divide it into a deeper stormwater basin and a shallower sediment basin, so the sediment basin can be dried up and cleaned out periodically during construction. So he's kind of killing two birds with one stone. He's going to have his sediment basin down there, and then when the project's over, that'll be the stormwater basin when it's cleaned out and permanently abandoned as a sediment basin.
And is the plan for that to be a dry structure? Is that right?
He is designing that basin to not hold water permanently. They're wanting to drain it down within a certain time period after a storm. He didn't have that time period exactly spelled out, but, you know, probably less than 48 hours, they're going to try to drain all that water out of that basin. And my understanding was it would be conveyed by a pipeline running down to the nearest box culvert that has significant drainage and outlet it into the stream at that point.
Will they do that manually, Frank, or is this something by the way he'll set his standpipe?
It'll be a gravity flow,
Gravity flow?
so it'll be an open pipe. And how big that's got to be, I don't think he's determined yet, but it'll be a substantial pipe, you know, large enough to drain that.
So as it is raining and it fills up, it will be discharging some
Yes.
because it'll be over the standpipe.
Yes, and how that works is kind of wait to be seen. If he can get grass to grow on the bottom of that thing and it turns into a nice looking area, that's fine. If it's got 6 inches of water left in it, you know, it may be a little bit of a problem for him to get that to drain and look nice. If we were out around Denver, you drive by sediment basins out around the more drier regions, they got pine trees growing in the bottom of them. They don't even look like a sediment basin, but around here we're a little wetter, so it may be a little more difficult to come up with something like that. I guess at worst it'll probably look like a wetland, and at best it'll look like a golf course if you can get it to somewhere between a golf course and a wetland. I know they would like to see it look well. And I guess item 4 on our proposal is to point out discovered areas of deficiency in runoff planning. Again, I don't have any permanent documents to review, so I basically discussed the concepts with the designer that he's going to utilize within his stormwater plan. He stated they would use silt fence, sediment logs, straw wattles. Straw wattles are those little snake-looking things full of wheat straw that you see laying around, keeping the mud out of the storm sewer inlets. He would even use rock checks if needed for temporary controls. But the goal of this is to funnel as much water as they can through the underground stormwater system. His detention basin will hold the 25-year runoff, which is usually a standard in design. And he said they probably will even have enough storage there time they design it to take dirt out of it to contain the entire 100-year runoff value. The only problem with that is generally underground stormwater systems aren't designed for 100-year storms, so there'll be some overflowing into the curb and gutter system, and the water will probably convey its way down the hill till it leaves the property in the ditches of Silverback Way or whatever.
Do you know what design storm they'll use for the stormwater system itself?
I think 25 years their goal.
25.
That's about 4.2 inches in a six-hour period. as opposed to the 100-year, which would be about 6.1 or 2 inches in a 6-hour period.
Okay.
And those are engineering terms. I tell people anymore, they say, well, how come we see a 25-year storm every couple of years? I go, well, that's a term that was developed back in the 60s for the weather data we had from about 1966 to about 1916. There are new 25-year storms out there, but we're not using them yet because people would probably freak out if they saw how big they were. It's, you know, they say the new 35 is 60 if you're 60 years old. Well, the new 25-year storm may have been the old 100-year storm. That puts it in any kind of perspective for you. He didn't offer any pipe sizes or cubic feet per second yet because it's all still being worked on, so that'll come later. When I get that, I could potentially evaluate the size of his pipes and the way his whole system's going to work. And item 5 is what I'm doing now. I'm submitting you this report in a timely manner because I didn't know what your time crunch really was for sure. Hopefully this will give you enough information to proceed with a hearing if you have to have one here pretty short notice. Item number 6, I did visit the site for a recon inspection. I met there September 19th with Cameron Alden and Troy Graham representing the city and Crawford County respectively. We drove the perimeter of the site, looked over the lay of the land, former crop field. It's grown up in various species of semi-perennial stuff, mostly poverty grass, maybe a few clovers. It's a gently sloping field. There's no surface erosion present in the field itself at this time. As I stated earlier, some evidence of previous runoff erosion was found around the south edge and the southwest corner. There's also an old waterway constructed currently along the north side of the property that outlets into a yard at the northeast corner of the property. It appears that that waterway had been used when the field was in crops. There were openings carved in it for old terraces, but I found no evidence that the terraces were still there. So I assume they've been eliminated at some time in the past. The waterway is still there, though. And in conclusion, although the designer's not finished with the plans, it appears they are well along in the development with final refining left to do. If the county wishes to have the final plans reviewed at a later date, the engineers offered to send those to me as soon as they are completed. At this point in time, with the limited information I have to evaluate, it appears the engineer has a plan to reduce the stormwater discharge to acceptable levels and appears to be following standard procedure for a stormwater pollution protection plan to be completed in the next few weeks. In my attachments, you've got the RHID properties as passed by Pittsburgh or proposing to be passed. And then these preliminary plan sheets I got hanging up here. So, and I do have some more plans on Silverback Road, but it's my understanding you guys aren't involved in that project.
Well, you know, not right now, but, you know, that is out in the county, and unless they come along and, do they have to annex it since the state owns it, state property?
For the road?
Yes.
No,
We don't have no jurisdiction on that at all?
not on the road, no.
Even if it goes across our,
Goes across the county property? I mean, out in the
Yeah,
county?
not if they get an easement or some sort of easement from the landowner.
Well, Frank, do you think,
I think Pitt State owns the land.
right, they do,
Yeah.
then we own right next, someone out in the county owns right next to us.
They'd have to get easements, road easements.
But with all these things, you know, to me, the ends are not tied up, you know, they're going to think about like the pipe size and the drainage and all that. Don't you, or you may not want to answer. I feel that they're not very far along with this design of the stormwater. With them trying to go, to get a bond tonight or present a bond tonight, well, I don't know how that works. So,
Well, and I'm not an expert on
True.
how these things go between cities and counties. If Jim thinks I know you've got 30 days after the resolution's passed, creating the district. And that gives the school district and the county both, school district has to comment also because they're going to lose tax money out of this.
that's true.
And I know you guys' primary objective is to see if the loss in property tax revenues is going to be detrimental to the county as a whole. So it's more of a financing type.
That's part of it. That's not all of it, but that's
Yeah.
part of it.
My big concern is the people downstream, because by that first map that Kyle brought up, a lot of that's in floodplain already. And that bridge to the east of there, we moved it up, raised it up 2 foot. And then you catch that, they call East Cow Creek. It runs down a mile, and then it comes back in another set of houses. And then it goes in this one farmer's place, which we already have a problem from off of South Rouse Street by using concrete pipes. And it goes out in this field and just fans out. It does not hit the main Cow Creek. So what extra water we have is going to be a hindrance to the people downstream of there. That's what my concern is.
Well, the purpose of the detention basin is to come up with an outlet pipe that is discharging water similar to the amount of water that was being discharged before the development went in. That's the theoretical reason you put a detention basin in. Pittsburgh does not have a severe stormwater detention policy. The one that they're using it where the coefficient of runoff cannot be greater than 0.5. That's one of the simpler ones. Probably a more complex one would be like for Kansas City, Missouri. I've seen their plan, and it actually requires the developer to reduce the runoff that was there before he started to an amount that the city can manage. And they actually put the burden of stormwater control on the developer rather than the city. But that's in Kansas City, Missouri, where they assume every piece of property is going to be developed. There won't be any natural buffers around anything left, so they're making the developer do it. And that's a fairly costly thing to do.
But, if they don't, then we're going to get repercussion downstream if we get abundance of water. And I know you said that most of this water is going to go out to the street or go into a storm. I can't understand, we're going to have all this hard surface, sidewalks, roads, house roofs, and et cetera. So all that water there cannot get absorbed in the ground. It's got to go
gotta run
out.
somewhere.
It's got to run out and go into this detention or retention pond. So I feel there's going to be more and more water. But like you say on the back side, I agree with you that. But on the front side, there's going to be more and more water run off that because it's going to be sealed.
Well,
And that's my concern.
a crude way of looking at it, if I didn't bring my book with me, but typically, for a yard, they say a yard has a runoff coefficient of 0.2. This project with the pavement, the roofs and everything has a runoff coefficient of 0.467. So in a crude way of looking at it, they doubled the runoff. Now, Jeff, I didn't look up what a cropland is. Back when it was a farm plowed up cropland, it had a runoff coefficient greater than 0.2. It might have been as high as 0.3 or 0.4 because plowed fields and cropland generate more runoff than pastures and hay meadows. So whether they're changing the total runoff tremendously from when it was a plowed field or not would require some further evaluation. But if you look at what's there now with the grass and the the crummy grass and whatever they got there. It's probably not a .2 now because it's not real healthy, but it's certainly not as bad as it was when it was a bean field, so to speak. So yeah, they are admitting that they're increasing it, but they're within Pittsburgh's regulations, so they have met the requirements
There
of
will
the
be more
regulation.
runoff, but they're going to catch it all and let it come out slowly through a pipe.
Well, if they did,
Catch almost all of it.
if they did nothing, if they didn't put that retention basin in, they would still meet Pittsburgh's .5.
We beat the regs.
Who sets that, Frank, that .5? Like
Pittsburgh.
I mean, can they do their own, knowing that it's going to come out? What if we have one that's a .2? And yet, right there at the county city line, so they would have to meet our...
How would that work?
How would that work then? I'm just asking.
Well, you don't have one.
True, we don't have
If you
one.
did, it would require a fairly healthy zoning department to enforce. So most counties don't go to that. They allow the cities to be the lead on that because they're the ones that obviously are dealing with all the pavement, all the parking lots and everything. It takes a grass field and turns it into 100% runoff. So I guess if you, and I don't really know of any counties, haven't done any research up around Kansas City. If Wyandotte County has its own, I suspect they don't, because that's another bureaucracy counties try to avoid. Because the building permit guy is the one that's going to enforce it. If he walks in and wants a building permit for a parking lot, he's going to say, well, I need a stormwater plan. So you can't have your building permit until you show that to me. Because I've done some of those for the city of Iola and for KDOT, where they would not give them a permit to put in a driveway or put in a parking area until they showed that there weren't going to be any adverse impacts on the KDOT gutter running down in front of it or the city storm sewer that goes next to it. So that it is done, like you're saying, to evaluate it to see if there's a issue on downstream that's going to cause problems. And if there is, then they put in a stormwater retention with a smaller pipe in it than the natural flows would allow, and it allows water to back up into the reservoir and drain out slowly. Now, these guys, whether they put this in to keep you guys happy or put this in because they realized they needed a borrow pit and they had to put in a stormwater sediment control basin, also, I'm not privy to their logic on putting this in, but it appears that they're trying to put in a retention basin that's going to alleviate your concerns.
Well, I'll tell you what, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was told by their engineer that they did not have to put one in because it wasn't commercial, but now all of a sudden, they've come up showing now they're putting this retention.
Well, and I think that's in response
But
to some of
if
your
there wasn't no
meetings
one
today.
being concerned about it, and then we had problems downstream with the rest of the people, then what does that make us? I feel we would be liable for them other people getting more water or flooding or what have you in a big rain. So I feel they should, if it calls for, like I think I seen here, 10 acres, make it 20 acres. Or make it where, for the most happening, what could happen. Make it bigger than what it should be. But here, they're just showing what your findings is, that to me, the plan's not ready to go. And really, I'm not saying you're doubting them, but they're not giving us nothing. Hey, seems like all we're getting is this lip service and, get the drawing, which that's fine. But actually saying, hey, we're going to use a 12-inch pipe for a discharge down so many feet.
Yeah.
The pond is going to be so high or so big.
That's all.
That's all up here in space, and no one seems to know.
It's all being worked on. And I've been on the other end of that.
Yes, sir.
And I understand that maybe this all came about on short notice to him.
But you don't do this kind of investment in a short notice. I mean, we're affecting, I was to say 100, but I'd say at least 50 to 75 residents downstream from this. And that's what my big concern is.
Well, and I guess, Carl, have I done enough
You've done
for
great.
you to
so
be
far.
able to make what you got to decide?
Well, I hope the city of Pittsburgh does not jump on it, because there's so many variables out there that's not answered. And myself personally, I'd like, when they do have a final plan, that we can have you come back and review it for us. And I've heard highly about you by this one, and this guy here don't have much.
I would
Yes, Andy?
say I taught him everything he knows, but
Well-
he knows a lot more than I do in a
Well,
lot of areas.
I won't tell you what he said about you,
That's
but anyway, but no, there's people out here in the crowd, but if you don't mind, answer their concerns.
I have
if
a
that's
question
okay,
for
Jeff.
you, Frank, and it may not be a fair question for you, and I'm no engineer by any means, but do you feel that there's going to be an adverse effect to the people downstream, to the people in that area,
Well,
with the information that you have?
I'm not going to sit here and tell you there'll be no effect, because there will be. Anytime man does anything, there's an effect. There's good things and bad things. So yeah, it's going to be different downstream. It's not going to be a bean field anymore like it was 10, 15 years ago. Now, whether that's good or bad, there's some bad things about bean fields. You got aerial sprayers bombing your house and all this kind of stuff. But as far as the runoff issue, as engineers, we have ways to control that up to a point that are economically feasible for everybody involved. From my research, it appears usually that's a 25-year storm. Now, that doesn't mean tomorrow we're not going to get a 6-inch rain and we're going to have temporary flooding. You always hear this stuff, temporary flooding. It goes away in a day or so. That's the kind of stuff you can probably expect out there if they do this correctly. You'll still have that. And you also got to remember, if you have a 100-year storm, this blue area is going to supposedly be underwater anyway. So the effects on that blue area is probably fairly minimal, because it's going to flood anyway. Now that probably doesn't make the people that own the blue area feel any better, but whenever that big storm hits this subdivision, it's also going to hit them. Plus, it may also have backwater from somebody else's 10-inch rain. So typically, we try to get it to a blue area and then realize that's floodplain protected. There shouldn't be any high-value property built there anyway, so that's kind of where everybody turns it loose. Now, if you're the guy that's having it turn loose right in your backyard, it's not a good deal to have to look at, but typically that's not an area you could build a house in anyway, because it's in the 100-year floodplain. So I don't know if I've answered your question. We try to minimize the damage to areas that we know it's not going to be developed, and use good engineering design to try to keep those damages under control. But yeah, there's going to be a change. There is, I don't necessarily have to be in town to change some. We could put a feedlot in there. Feedlots generate a lot of runoff, as Jeff knows from his past work experience, and we have to control that. We can't let that, even if it didn't smell, we can't let that runoff run down and wipe out something downstream, so we try to detain it and release it in a controlled manner, and that's exactly what these guys are supposed to be doing. And I'd agree with Carl, they might not have done it if you guys hadn't pointed out some things to them, so. But when those are pointed out, they find a way to do it that's still economical for them. They're going to get dirt out of it. They're going to use it for a sediment basin. They've gained a couple of things there they were going to have to do anyway. So,
Yeah, I thought it was interesting talking to you. You were pointing out that they were required to do a sediment basin anyway. If you develop over 10 acres, you're required to build a sediment basin, so
and that
they really
sediment,
needed to do this.
that sediment basin has certain storms it has to hold, so they were already slapped with that. And that's got to catch the runoff from the whole place, whether it runs through a storm sewer or not. So that sediment basin is going to have surface runoff channeled through it, which may run over land. It won't be in a pipe, but it's still going to have to go in there. So they're going to have to do some dirt work in order to channel most of this drainage area on the surface into that area. That could be a challenge, particularly when you get down here into this area, which is a whole lot higher than that.
True.
I think my main frustration is that we just didn't get much information, if any, from the city until we started asking for it. It just wasn't very well communicated. That's what I felt like. So, and we don't, if this is really what we're concerned about, this runoff, we don't have a final design to look at.
That is very true. That's what I'm saying.
How do you make a call as to that? I don't know.
Well, you need to ask Jim what the statutes say, I think. I know you got 30 days
Right.
to do something, but when you do something, can you ask for another 30 days or ask for plans or?
After the 30 days, it's up, if we do something, that's up to them.
Well, I
This
feel,
basically, it puts a stop to what they're doing, and then they have to satisfy us
yeah.
going forward or nothing.
You have the statutory authority to stop.
That's what
right?
it says, yes.
That sounds a little, if you don't really want to stop it, but you want it better than it is, then you can word that somehow. We're stopping it until you make it better than it is. You could do that, but that's up to the,
Well, that's something they should do. They should have done, like Jeff says, they should have done that to start out. Hey, this is the plan we got. Hey, this is why we're going to protect you. Just like we zoned a medical complex out there, which the back part of it is in the floodplain anyway. So they're going to get more water. So that means less of theirs they can develop for us to get revenue off of. And then, of course, you've got the houses there, and that's my concern too. If we get a big rain, how are we going to control it? And just a dumb question, to eliminate a lot of this. I know water goes downhill, don't go uphill. Why don't they reverse it and put it in their storm sewer? I mean, their storm sewer, and let it go through their processing plant. Like they do every place else, like in Pittsburgh, downtown Pittsburgh, or East 8th Street, East 9th Street, goes in the storm drain. Then all that goes to their wastewater treatment plant. I know they bypass a lot of it there, but, this would help tremendous on us.
I don't think they can put fresh water into their wastewater treatment plant.
No, they bypass it, but I think it goes down, and I think they bypass the wastewater, but I think that's where it goes in. Or if not, where does their storm water go now that's in the city?
Most stormwater outlets to the nearest natural channel. That's the way.
But
If
if
you
you got
follow
it-
those storm drains out here on these streets, they come out of the ground somewhere. They're into a
So you don't
huge,
think there's a direct pipe in there?
I don't think that's legal.
Because I've just heard that, that the stormwater bypasses the treatment plant.
There are some towns where they have enough wastewater get into their storm gutters that they have to put a small detention basin to treat it. But I don't know if Pittsburgh's one of those or not.
I don't know.
I'd say typically they try to keep that water as clean as they can so they can discharge it without treating it. So,
Jeff, there's some people on the audience we want to talk.
Thanks, Frank. Is there anyone?
I can leave these maps. I can leave everything I brought.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be good.
Frank, would you mind, if the people want
Sure.
to ask you a question, would you mind answering it, please?
Fine.
If there's any citizens that would like to speak, go ahead and come on up.
Yeah, my name's Bill Strength. I live at 1515 Hampton on the north end of where this development's going in. And we're probably the ones that's got the city looking at the stormwater in the first place before we started talking about it. I got two concerns with this whole thing. One is we've heard so many different stories on what they're going to do out there. And the final plat that was just recorded on September 12th is really not completed yet, correctly, even to the city standards. And that retention pond, did you get a chance to look at the permit requirements for Silverback Way from the Department of Agriculture? Okay, because that has got endangered animals in there, the owl and the, just can't think of the name right now, it's like a little lizard. And they've got strict requirements that they can take out very few trees, and they gotta lay 3 of them 8 foot long in certain places and all that. And that's right in the same place where they're gonna talk about removing all of these trees. So the chance of them getting a permit is probably not real high to go in there and take out any more, considering right in here where
Where's
that...
Pointer?
Jeff had it.
Hey, will you stop there for a minute? Can I ask you something, Bill?
Yes.
Is that ground already platted?
Yes, they approved it July 10th, the city did.
Okay, the city, so who platted that ground? The city or the developer?
I can't tell you that. I think it's the developer that's supposed to have done it, but the
But-
city's name's on the final plat.
So, no,
Or both of them
the
are.
city platted this, so really right now, the city owns the ground and it's already platted?
I don't know if they've sold it to the developer or not. I don't know that stuff.
Well, can we have Sandy Casey come down, Register of Deeds, and have her look that up, would you, Bobby, and come down and give us an answer on that, please? Thank you.
Right now, all that there's under FEMA, a no-name stream that runs right through here and drains all of this in this area here. In fact, on August 14th or 19th, when we had about 1.5 inches rain, this field was flooded up into here, and there's a ditch up here, and it was flooding back up this direction. And normally this is totally dry, but I got video of that being a roaring river at that time. But for them to bring in Silverback Way, they're coming right up in through here, and there is real stringent regulations. In fact, they weren't happy because originally the developer was talking about putting in a MSE wall where the box culvert is, like a bridge, and only be about 34, 35 feet wide. Well, when they went to the Department of Agriculture and got the permit, they're now going 134 feet because they've cut out the MSE wall and they're just sloping it, and they weren't happy about that. They actually asked the city.
What's MSD?
MSE is a mechanical stabilized earth wall. It's a concrete wall.
Okay.
It's a fancy name. It's usually prefab and they put pieces together.
Okay.
But it was supposed to look like stone and all of this other stuff. So they've got, wrong way. They've got real stringent regulations. Plus, there is right in here, and we had the state archaeologist in there 2 weeks ago today. There's 2 Native American unmarked graves in there. And the city even knew about it, and they checked no on their NOI, and we're going to talk to them about that tonight. But they were out there about a year ago, and 3 of the upper city administrators, and they know there's 2 Native American graves out there.
That's what I was going to ask you. I've heard that.
Yeah, we found part of the headstone on one of it. It's got some letters on it.
Yep.
And the gentleman that's from the area that had been out there years ago and actually found it came out and showed us, about 4 of us and the state archaeologist. And it took us a while to find the stone, and it's busted up a little bit, but we found 3 letters on it. And so it's going to be it. But they tell you something right now, until I see it in the ground, I'm not going to believe it. And is that pond big enough, to actually hold the volume of all that? And that waterway does work, because that waterway's in front of my house, and when it rains a lot, where that grass is, you can get a riding lawnmower stuck in it because it does hold water. So there is still.
What's the guy down at the end of that
Ask him right there with a hat on.
I was kind of wondering.
Hey, Doug, would you come up, please? Tell us your name, please.
Doug Linder.
Well, we didn't hear you.
Doug Linder, 1534 Hampton Road. Right in that corner, in the northeast corner.
Did you get a lot of water when those terraces were?
When it rained, I get a lot coming down the driveway, and then if it rains a lot, it can back up into my garage, if it gets real bad. If I don't control the grass, because I dig a little ditch, a little pipe under my driveway.
Do you remember when they took the terraces out?
probably gotten worse when it rains real hard.
There's still openings from the field to let water into that waterway. It hasn't been isolated. But I thought that was pretty bold of somebody to build a waterway, right? Was your house there before the waterway or after?
That house has been there, was built in 1983. We've been there 23 years.
The possibility of waterway was there first.
Because the people that did the farming out there, Hildebrands, own that house. Their daughter built it.
Okay.
So we moved in. So anyway,
Yeah, it needs,
but I've never got to ask that question because I don't know.
you know, that waterway needs to be done away with, the whole process of this, but it doesn't show up on there. They've got a planning or some kind of a
My house,
visual thing going in there, but they didn't.
my house don't show up in nothing until you look at the Google map. The rest of it looks like it's meant to be.
I noticed the waterway looked kind of awkward when I was out there.
What can you do for that? Can you help me out with
It
that?
just goes right into his yard. It's not something that you want to do if there's a house already there. But like you say, if they own it all, and they can do whatever they want with that.
Because I'm going to have 7 houses in the back of mine. 7 houses, the backside of the houses. That's a cosmetic thing, of course. But there'll be 7 houses around my property, just in that spot. So, and that's cosmetic.
My son lived in a subdivision up in Kansas City, and when he first moved in, he had a nice view of the creek, deer and everything.
Like a lot of us.
And now he's got a nice view of an asphalt road with 42 houses. That was just in 6 years, Kansas City, so.
That's what they're trying to do
When you
here.
move in, you gotta look around and see what's coming.
After 23 years, we've been there.
You got 23 years. It may take him 23 years to build all these houses.
But just our concern is, or what my concern was to start with, is the lack of concern about the stormwater. And to give you an idea why I say I don't trust anything they said, you can go back and look at the minutes of the meetings and stuff. Their first meeting, and even at the meeting when they got the plats approved, their plan was to go in and get this property from the university and go in and bulldoze all them trees out and make it wider and put the stormwater right in there. That's why you see all them drainages, easements going there. They were just going to just dump it straight in there and not worry about a thing. They had no desire whatsoever to even consider it.
That was the initial.
That was the
plan
initial.
we had, I know. At
And-
least from you. I never received.
Well,
anything.
if you look in the minutes and I watch the videos of the meetings, that says that. And again, that's what I said, you can't trust what anything is being said, because the minutes for the zoning planning board where this was approved have not been posted online yet, and that was clear back in June. We do have a copy of them where the developer says 1,600 square foot minimum houses. The RHDI bond thing they're going after is now for 1,200 square foot houses. So what he said just before the board voted on it, he's already thrown that out. Said that the roads going through here, because there was a lot of concern about the people that lived there, about the speed of the traffic going through and stuff. He says in that, again, just prior to the vote, the roads have got curves, which they do, angles, which they do, but he also said they had a median strip in it. Doesn't look like they do. Not with,
Silverback Way.
yeah, down here, but none of this, but he said this did. So we don't trust anything they say whatsoever.
Well,
That's-
the pollution control plan will be reviewed by the agencies you're talking about.
Yeah.
Wildlife Parks and the Historical Society.
Yeah, Larry Hook with KDHE. I've already been in communication with him about this here and the Native American. And you know what he told me? Well, we have to take their word for it.
Well, up to a point, but the Historical Society will be allowed to comment on that before it's approved. So,
Yeah, but within this 30 days, there's not much time.
Not much
it
time.
hasn't been approved yet, so.
Yeah, but the clock starts tonight.
Well, like I say, if the board, if their commission approves it, we can send in something saying we disagree with it, and I think we can set the time, or we can just, hey, if we're not satisfied with Frank's findings or what he finds out, we say no. Hey, that's it, you know, you gotta fix it. We will agree to approve it. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
You know, all we're really asking is we know it's going to be developed sometime. Just do it right.
That's true. That's very true. While you're standing there, Bill, Sandy Casey, can you tell us what they're telling us, that that's been platted, but the city of Pittsburgh owns it? Can that happen if you got a developer who's doing it? So who's going to own the land and that there?
My knowledge right now, the city of Pittsburgh owns that property.
And they went ahead and platted it, is that correct? And they developed, now will the developer have to come in and replat it, or is this the standard procedure?
I don't know why they would necessarily, unless they sell that property to the developer and then he sells it.
That's what the intent, what I've been hearing is they're gonna sell it to the developer for $100,000. That's what I heard. So when it changes hands, does this developer gotta come back in and replat it?
No.
It goes with the conditional use?
I assume that they'll sell them off. I mean, it's now been funded in lots owned by the city, so I would assume they would sell those lots, whether they sell 1 through 134 or.
So the city will sell them, they won't sell the whole 56 acres to the developer, or will the city be the one in charge of selling these lots?
That'll be up to them. I mean, you can sell as many lots as you want. If the city wants to sell all of them to the developer, they can do that, and the developer sell them off individually, or if they want to sell them off, you know, so they're put out in lots, they're currently owned by the city, will be deeded to whoever purchases that property at that time. So whether the developer purchases the property from the city at that time and then develops it.
So in other words, I'm done, but what I'm saying, if the city got 134 lots there, they platted it, Silverback comes in there and say, I'm gonna buy these 134 lots at $100,000, and then then the developer can go ahead and do it without doing anything else towards the county. Is that correct?
As far as we're concerned, yes.
Okay, that's what I wanna know.
That'll be some different.
So would the value of that ground before it got sold, right now, it's probably valued at agriculture, I'm saying? Because the way I understand it, if they go after this bond, the ground that's not being used for the bond, we'll say like they put up 4 homes, the rest of it will be taxable as a developing place instead of as agriculture.
That would go to the appraiser's office.
Do what?
The appraiser's office assesses the value on the property.
So in other words, it will have more value being platted right now, because the city, which we don't get taxes from the city. So who's going, I just don't understand who's going to pay the difference in the tax. I know if this bond goes through, that we don't get nothing off the ones that being built, the homes. We'll use 5 homes. So the rest of that ground, won't it be taxable if it goes to the developer, and then we can charge more for taxes on that piece of ground?
That's not my position on that.
Whose position is
That'd
it?
be the appraiser's office assesses the value.
See if Zach's here and get him up here. I want to know.
Yeah, so I don't know how you think we would
Okay,
do that.
that's fine. I understand.
Yeah.
While we're waiting for Zach, I'm gonna run the rest.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break, then, I mean, Frank, you got time? I know he's looking at the clock.
Sounds fun.
You need to go, Frank? Oh, good, thank you. We'll take a 5-minute break.
5-minute recess. Do we have any other comments from the public?
Well, okay.
Go ahead.
Shannon Miller, 1209 Imperial Drive. I'm not sure this is a podium-worthy question, because it might have already been answered. But, so is this runoff plan that you've been talking about take into account the existing residents in East Hills? Because where I live, on August 19th, I believe, was the last big rainstorm we had where it came down. That was a lake out in front of our house, and it all runs right down, filters into that field and over where the Bittners live. And so I haven't heard any talk about the water that.
This lady would be the northwest corner. She would be north of this area right here, which is square off.
That's where the circle, come up a little bit, that's where we are, right? So I get it from all of it.
Hey, Frank, you want to map our corner back to where she's talking about, so you...
Jeff
somebody.
I've got one.
Bill, I think.
Hey, Bill, there's a point,
Absolutely
Bill.
right. Keep going around. Keep going
It's on the podium right here.
here.
Oh, I don't know where she's.
No, you went the wrong way.
Down here?
Okay, go around the curve. Go towards York. Go towards
Go
York.
towards York.
On the curve. Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Oh, you turn the wrong.
You get that to work yet,
That
or-
one, right there.
Where's, try the
That's
other one,
all
Jim,
right.
please.
Okay.
Okay, they don't show any outside drainage running down Hampton on their plan. They stop their drainage area right there
Well,
at
there's plenty.
the north end.
So does that water then come down through the open field, ma'am, and then wiggles
It
out?
goes, if it's a rain, it runs out of the driveways out to that street that eventually flows around. It's, it's all going downhill, like you said.
Carl, right now, there is a little ditch that runs right along here that goes out into East Cow Creek.
Okay.
And this is a pond in this area right now when it does rain, just a little bit. In phase 2 and phase 3, they're supposed to spend almost $2 million to redo these two roads. When they do that, I would say they're gonna have to hook in a storm sewer to get this, because right now it just comes down this way and there is a little inlet right there, it goes across. Yeah, and all of this water here then will end up in this subdivision too at a later date when they redo Hampton there, it's got to.
So you're saying then, Bill, that it goes to the east there, down by Cheryl and them's house, and it hit that retention or detention pond? Will they hit
Well, when
that?
they redo this road, you would assume that they're gonna put storm sewer, have to put storm sewer in it and tie it in either, I don't know how they're gonna get down there. Either they'll have to run down and go to the Cow Creek here or tie into their storm sewer in here somewhere.
Well, that's a good thing to bring up, because that's something you guys could, or the county maybe could require that happens in this plan, and that would help your area, right?
Because right now, that creek right there is normally all dry, and it only gets dry, just like this other one, unless it rains, and it's just the drainage in here. In fact, that's my house there, and it'll go out of the bank, and we've got pictures from the last rain where it's out of the bank in this area right now, and that's just from this drainage area. And as soon as they do this, they're going to have to tie it into something, and that's gonna dump water even faster. But that's not even, they say that's phase 2, phase 3, we're not even considering
Well,
that yet.
I mean, it's just, you gotta look at the whole,
Well, that's what we've been trying to say.
It needs to be considered in their design for that retention pond, so.
that makes you think there,
Not let it go that way.
yeah. But how
Go
could they,
somewhere else with the drainage.
how could they, what would they do with it, Frank? Take the backside of that and put it in that floodplain?
They could improve where it's trying to go down, they could stay in that ditch instead. The ditch north that he's talking about is normally dry.
I think
If there's a natural drain there, they can use that for the outlet of their storm sewer.
Yeah, but they'd have to do some major construction in there to do that. Because right now, it's not straight, it's windy, a lot of big trees in and along it, and so they've had some major problems.
That's one option. You don't necessarily have to go through the civil.
The day I'm talking about, and I'm just focusing in on that one day, but it happens frequently. You couple that with the Pitt State runoff that comes down behind the Veterans Memorial through that rugby field that drains in there, and then our neighborhood, the existing neighborhood, we had quite a mess there. I called the city that day, and I did see some trucks actually show up, so I don't know if that helped or not.
Thank
And I
you.
think there's several of us that took pictures.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak? Okay. Commissioners have any more comments?
I'm just going to make the comment or tell people that I am going to be at that meeting tonight at 5 o'clock, and I'm not going to say nothing. I'm just going to observe and try to gather more information. And why Frank's here, I don't know, we need a motion or have Frank, when the final design's done, that he come back and review it for us. I don't want Frank to design it for him, not to say I want to pay him, that's his business, but as far as that informational wise, I'd love for you to come back.
You know, Carl, I think that's a good idea, but I would like Frank not just to look at the end, but maybe be involved, looking after our behalf throughout the process of this project.
We can add that in there too. Would you be interested, Frank?
Jeff, what do you think?
I'll probably rely on Jeff to give me guidance as to how involved you really want me to be.
Well, I mean, really, if you have a concern, I know you got bills like everybody else has got, and I really think we've got to look for the people downstream. And I myself personally, I think there's a problem because I lived here my whole life, and like I say, we raised that bridge almost 2 feet. I think we should be concerned because these are taxpayers downstream. And why should we abandon them? And I just don't feel that we should.
Well, so far I've got nothing but cooperation out of the engineers, so I wouldn't anticipate that being a problem if I asked for updates periodically.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
It's a reasonable request.
Because right now, I feel, if they do, their commissions approve it tonight, and all this I call it mostly just a blip, and this here, I believe within the 30 days, I'm going to get it to a vote, and my vote's going to be no if they don't come up with something permanent in writing, what they're going to do.
Could the commission table it tonight?
I don't know.
Jim, do they have the option to do that?
Oh, I think they could, sure.
Where it sits, I think that would be the best situation for us, because I think we feel like we need more final information on the plan. So-
I agree with you 100%, and if they'll table it, that'd be fine. If they don't table it, we can table it for them. We just say no. We don't have our...
So that would be the county commission's position on this. We'd like to see it tabled until final design.
Until we have final.
That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yes.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, I'd
That's
like to
good.
say have Frank along the way to
Yeah, but
look after
I
our
don't,
interest.
if they ask you for your expertise, I don't have no problem giving it to them. But for you, if they want to hurry, that's your business.
Well, they've got people, they're okay.
But, I feel that, the little session I had with them, there was nothing. And all of a sudden, since there's a concern, now we're getting a retention pond due.
As a reviewer working for you guys, I probably need to separate myself from the design.
There you are.
I think it's good.
That is real good.
Frank's
I think.
looking for Crawford County, so he represents.
Yes, you represent us, and we represent the people downstream of this.
If I said something, they might interpret that as
True.
your
Right.
wishes, and I'll just try to be a reviewer for you.
Good. That sounds good. And then as things progress, you can get hold of Jim or get hold of Jeff. And
I'm sure that's one more reviewer than they thought they were going to have. I think so, because
Okay.
Okay.
We need a motion on this too.
I'll make a motion that we keep
Frank on board.
Frank with us and be our reviewer
Okay.
with this project going out to Silverback. And hopefully Pittsburgh does not pass it tonight. And if they do, they do. But when they have a final drawing, and then you're going to be the one to interpret it and tell us, yes, it's a good plan, or no, it's not, or this needs to be corrected, and then we'll just move back and forth. How's that sound to you?
I'll second that.
All right. Thank you very much, Frank.
Thanks, Frank.
Thanks,
I'll
Frank.
leave. If there's anything here you don't want me to leave,
Can we have Kyle take these prints and take them upstairs for him, because it may be a couple weeks? Anything you don't want, we'll get stored upstairs.
I'll just leave these with you. I've got them all on
Okay.
the computer.
Okay. And again, I thank you very much, Frank.
That's not a problem. Organized a little better.
Uh-oh. Or Frank, do you want to take him upstairs to him, or do you want him to come down and get him? He's up on third floor. As you get off the elevator, hang a right. GIS man, yes. He's got maps and stuff up there stored. But if you don't want to, we'll have him come down and get him. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Unless you want me to leave that one there.
Well, yeah.
We got a few of them.
Well, I'll have him come down and get them.
Good. New business, Jim?
I have no new business.
Something I do have, and I need to do some more checking on it. I was told that one of our tractors is down for mowing in our district. Talked to Greg Hyde about it a little bit, but he had not looked at it to evaluate it. He may have by now. I hadn't talked to him in a couple days, but basically Greg's comment was we're trying to keep, it's like trying to keep an old Pinto running as far as those old tractors. So do we need to get some different tractors? Do we need to rent a tractor that's going to run, or what's the other commissioner's
Well,
thought?
you know, we only got 2 old ones and 2 Ags.
Yeah, those are the
And
2 we're trying to run.
both of them has had completely overhauled. I think rear ends has both been done in both of them.
Oh.
And I was kind of told that they was, you know, in pretty good shape, but you don't know about an older piece of equipment, you know, this late in the season. Maybe we can take on a little more mowing in our area, or
I
maybe
think it would be good. We're behind on
well, everybody is. You know, I think we're getting caught up. So,
Usually we're
Tractors
slowing down this time of year, but it's still
but if you want to see that, or you know, why couldn't we take one of them? And it wouldn't be that hard to take off. Take off one of them side boom mowers and throw it on the tractor. Throw that mower on the tractor. Why can't we do that?
Me, I don't.
Because, you know, we
don't
have
know
an
if those
extra,
old mowers
we have an
run.
extra side boom mower. And we got a new tractor for that.
Do you mean the pole mower?
No, the side boom mowers. We've got Tom used to have one. He's got the spare one now. You had 2 and I had 1. So can we take a spare one off and drop the boom off of it, throw a brush hog on it and continue going again?
I can ask about that. We can see.
Yeah, that way
We
keep
need
you
to be
going.
mowing, I know
Yeah.
that, so.
Yeah.
Are your people able to mow in this area some to help catch
Well,
up?
we just see where we're at, because
I'll check with my guys and see if they can pick up a little bit.
I'll just let my foreman know you might be willing to do that. He can contact your foreman to
Yeah.
work that out.
yeah,
That'll be all
I
right.
mean, if we're, you know, if we already got ours mowed for the second time, yeah, we can. But like I say, ask Hyatt to drop a boom off one of them tractors and throw it
I'll
on
ask
that mower.
about that. We'll see.
Because it's probably a 540 power takeoff. And it shouldn't be that hard to take that off there.
Okay.
Because right now,
Check
we don't need to be at the side boom, we need to be taking, mowing the ditches.
Yeah. Okay. We'll do
If
some
something
check
happens,
on that.
Jeff, let us know on Friday. If that don't
Yeah.
work out, then we'll see about getting one.
Okay.
Or just go buy a new one.
I don't think I have anything else. Tom? New
No, the
business?
only thing I had under new business was I was going to ask if we should retain Frank Young to represent us to this, and that's already been answered, so I'm good.
Okay. Carl?
The only thing I had, like the first meeting, what I said, we had Benji Cannon and myself done that, and I don't like what went on Monday, and I'm just giving you a heads up that the investigator, I'm gonna get a hold of him, and he's coming back in. I don't like what happened to me, and I just want to let you know that it's not going to be a sneaky deal that I get a call, but I'm just telling you heads up that the KBI is going to be back, and they're going to be looking. So that's all I'm going to say. I was very, very disappointed, and if worst comes to worst, and I find out who done it, I'm going to ask for their resignation, and if it's a worker, I want him terminated, because I don't know where it come yet for sure. I have my good idea, but that's just how I feel about it, and we're going to do it right here in this meeting, and I'm not going to speculate like people speculated with me yesterday. You just can't. My name got smeared, and if it comes from the county, like I said, I got a lawyer on retention. So I'm sorry it happened, but this is the way things go down. So if I do find out, you people will know about it, and we'll we're going from there. That's all I have to say about new business.
Okay. Whole business. Jim?
I don't have anything.
Okay. I don't have anything. Tom?
You know what? Let's go into executive session for 20 minutes under attorney-client.
Okay.
I'm voting no. I want it right out here because I think I know what you're going to talk about. If it's talking about me, talk about it. Don't go in executive session. Let people
I
know
guess
what's
my
going
question, well, and that's what I was going to do.
I know you was. So
This is self-transpired yesterday?
that's right.
Okay.
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know the legalities of any of this, so, we'll just have to, one step at a time.
That's right. We'll see what the KBI finds. Because they're going to open closets and they're going to open up drawers. I just think it was real disrespectful what happened. And I hope you guys never have to go through it. But I did yesterday.
Okay.
I feel the Woods name has been smeared. And I'm going to take care of it.
Whole business, Carl?
I don't have no old business, sir.
Okay. Future business and announcements, October 5th, 2018, Ryan Insurance LLC addressing workers' comp quarterly loss report. I think we should put this evening's meeting on the announcements, because I might go to that as well. What time is that? Is it 5 o'clock?
5:30?
5:30. Okay. City of Pittsburgh City Council, is it City Council meeting? Is that-
No,
or
it's
is it
City
zoning
Commission.
commission?
No,
City
no,
Commission.
it's the Commissioner meeting, right? Yeah.
City Commission meeting, 5:30, City Hall. City
No,
Council.
it's right there. Yeah, law enforcement.
There's the law enforcement.
Right behind it.
That's right.
You know, Jeff, I'm going to go, and I'm not going to say nothing, because I believe these other people's going to talk quite a bit, but if you want to go, you know more about engineering than I do, because I'm no engineer.
I might go just to listen so I
Yes.
understand the situation.
I think it would be beneficial to us, Jeff, if you could make it to that.
Yeah, so, okay. I have a meeting this Friday. I will not be here, so.
So who we got Friday, Jeff?
Nobody.
So far, nobody, yeah.
For right now.
Any other future business or announcements?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
All right.